a couple months ago, I had to crap on the side of the road. Welcome to the Rewatchers in the Fifth Dimension. We watched Interstellar this week. This is Christopher Nolan's follow-up to Inception, isn't it? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises might have been in between. That doesn't count. I'm Mitchell Marshall here along with
Gwen Hammer.
Justin Hammer.
Tyler Harris.
Teabag back in the house.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
You know what I think of when I think of Teabag is a man having a vet sew his severed hand back on in Prison Break.
What? Oh.
Because of Teabag.
I just think of that guy overall, who's a
Yeah.
great snivelly looking villain dude.
Great actor in Twin Peaks. One of
Yeah,
the Mitchum
right.
brothers.
Oh,
Wonderful
yeah.
dude. Yeah. Anyway.
That's funny because that's one of he does play a bad guy, but it's one of the times he doesn't play like a straight rapist, like a
Yeah.
horrible person.
Yeah. He's awful.
Ooh, anyway, if you haven't seen Interstellar, which I hadn't until today, here's a little summary for you.
Oh, my mind just got blown. I thought everyone had seen it. Okay. Wow. I'm
Nope.
stoked. Cool.
All right.
My neighbors haven't seen it. Sorry. Keep
Did
going.
they hear it while you were playing?
No,
I-
I ran over to give them to the
They might
strainer.
have.
Wait, when you say your neighbors, do you mean Tyler and Katie?
No, my other neighbors.
Upside.
They're like, "Are you watching a movie that we didn't? We like usually recognize all the movies they're playing." But
Well, if you
man,
play Interstellar at a medium volume with a nice sound system, they could probably hear it.
but none of the dialogue.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll talk about that.
Matt Damon's dialogue. Oh, I'm excited. All right. McConaughey's a mediocre father on a dusty-ass farm. Chalamet sucks at school. Third Rock from the Sun dad is a grump. Textbooks are full of propaganda. The fam finds a drone. The fam finds the secret remnants of NASA. Dad leaves for space with the Princess of Genovia to find a black hole to hopefully a habitable planet because Earth is only has corn and weed left. Wormholes are spheres. Blocky robots are tactful. Hathaway shakes hands with space seamen. The team gathers info on Camino, where 1 hour is 7 years. I cry watching Casey Affleck give an update. Murph is an angry scientist. The farm is dying. 2 planets are left, only have enough fuel to visit one. Cooper chooses the one without Hathaway's lover on it. She's pissed. Alfred, the butler, is dead. Matt Damon is awake, but he couldn't start a potato farm this time. Turns out there's no chance to save those on Earth. Alfred lied. Topher Grace is here to save us all. Coop is going to come home. Damon is a liar and falsely reported livability and killed his robot lover to be rescued. Affleck is letting his family die. Damon tries to kill McConaughey and maroon the crew after killing Romilly. Murph burns down the crops and steals Affleck's family to find Casper. Dr. Man can't latch the hatch and blows up, but Cooper matches the spin and clips on. Can't get back to Earth, so they slingshot off of a black hole. Just kidding. McConaughey's going to sacrifice himself into the hole and save Anne. He ejects into a metal maze world. Oh shit, he is the ghost in another physical dimension. Lots of dimensional mumbo jumbo. Eureka, Tesseract sighting. It was his alien semen handshake all along. He is found by Cooper's station, orbiting Cooper's station around Saturn at 124 years old. Murph saved the damn world. The farmhouse is a museum. Father-daughter reunion. Coop finna go see Brand, whose boo was dead all along.
There are too many fluids, human bodily fluids tonight.
Look, that's when I saw the weird alien liquid coming in. It's all I could think of.
Yeah, and now that's all I'm going to think of, too.
Oh, yeah. Semen and diarrhea. Things happen from the human body. So I had never seen this movie before, and I really liked it. And I didn't think I would, if I'm being honest. When I read the criticisms of it, because this is a movie when it came out, it's not like you have to see every Nolan movie, but it was a big blockbuster. It was the kind of thing I would have seen, and I just don't know why it never happened. And when people are like, well, it's kind of long and convoluted, and then it has this weird ending, I thought I'd hate it, and I really liked it. And I even liked the ending.
Okay.
And I wish there were a few things that were explained a little bit more, but the ambiguity completely came together for me. I was emotional, and when he first goes into the black hole, and then he ends up there, I was on the edge of my seat. Like, I feel like he was spiraling through figuring this out, and I was really there for every little revelation and every moment, and I was also emotionally on board, because I think from the moment when you don't think he's going to get home anymore. I was really wanting that reunion to happen. And I kind of had connected that the old woman at the beginning was her. So I was like, we're going to see that future. And because there's so much messed up time, is he going to get back? And so I was just very emotionally invested, and I just really enjoyed it.
Cool. I mean, if we're talking about the ending, I will say the ending...
We don't have to start there.
Yeah, where are we going to start? But since we're here, let's start at the end.
Okay.
Let's Tarantino this. Let's start at the end. We'll Tarantino Nolan. I honestly, every time I watch this, I feel more strongly about this, that I wish it just ended with him in the black hole and him not getting out.
That makes sense.
I just, for me, this, and that comes from a lot of things, but like this movie, I remember when I first saw it, reminded me so much of stuff like 2001. That's like this 70s, very grand, like epic sci-fi movie that is about how small humanity is, and yet how much fucking cool stuff we can still do. And to me, like the fact that Coop got out, I get the emotional payoff, and I think that's an important part of this film for sure. But for me, it elevates him to a level that feels superhuman in a way that I don't enjoy as much. Like I like the idea of that sacrifice and all of that. But yeah, that's probably one of my bigger criticisms of this movie. And it was one of the things that, like, a couple of years ago when I was reading about this, that's actually how it originally ended. But Christopher Nolan decided that they were going to change that. And
I was wondering if that was Christopher Nolan or if someone else was like, we should have a happier ending, which I think it is a happy ending. It is, but it is still really thoughtful and ambiguous. And
it's bittersweet. It's definitely not like saccharine, or it doesn't feel like a complete betrayal of what has come before.
I could definitely see it ending in that black hole. Or, I mean, there's a couple different spots, but I didn't feel like it overstayed its welcome. But one thing I do kind of understand with you is he just said, that is us, but in the future. And I think it's kind of a cop-out because they don't really have to explain how we get there. But I think the entire idea is all we've really been given is, hey, there's these many dimensions. We're going to find out how to mess with time just enough to save humanity. But then apparently they take that to the point where they really move it back. And so that does open up a kind of a can of worms of more issues. But I think the overall idea of him being able to use that just to get to her, just to save humanity. But then the idea that then they become this really next level thing that... into whatever, I don't know what year it takes place, but in that present time, you would think, oh, this must be aliens because it's that far ahead.
Yeah, and I even think seeing Murph at the end, I don't have a problem with that. I just feel like the idea that he goes through that, like, has this, to me, that incredible payoff of him communicating that through time to her feels like the thing. And like after that, what else do you really want to do? Oh, you want to go find Anne Hathaway's character? I guess. I don't know. That's the only part, I think, for me.
I could have seen it ending in the black hole. I could have honestly seen it ending as soon as she realized it was him.
Sure, yeah.
Like, we didn't necessarily need the moment where they're actually on the space station. And then I could have seen it ending with them having a moment. It's just funny that he leaves and she's like, just... I don't want you to watch me die. And I'm like, you gotta spend like 10 minutes together, just hang out for a bit. She apparently, was she just cryo sleeping for, just wake me up if he comes back. Otherwise, just let me die in here. I have some cryo sleep questions, but.
We all do.
Do you think him and Anne Hathaway banged? This is important. This is important to me.
Before or after?
After.
You mean during filming?
Probably.
Or like, the characters?
I have no... Brand. It took me a very long time. These people are too famous for their names to be as basic as Cooper and Brand.
Yeah,
really
I still
unfair.
don't know.
Matt
Which
Damon's
one's
Dr.
Brand?
Man. Really. That's Anne Hathaway.
Damon is Brand.
No, Damon is Dr. Man.
Damon is Man. Okay.
Man. Damon is Man.
The man.
This summer.
Yeah. I just think he's going to go, and that I couldn't tell when we see her at the end there when is that supposed to be? And that's supposed to be apparently the planet that does become habitable. I was a little confused there, but it didn't really matter. I think the sentiment of him, like, going back to this person who he went through this with and saved and probably has some chemistry with, she was just trying to get her dad laid. That's a weird sentence. What did you think of the ending, Gwen?
I thought the ending was fine. Like I agree with everything you guys said. It could have ended in the black hole emotionally, and it would have been fine. But I love this movie up until he's like, love is quantifiable. I'm like, fuck it. Like, I hate that so much. Like,
I'm so glad to hear you say that because that's my same argument for fucking The Fifth Element. People love The Fifth Element. I don't think I'm taking
Fifth Element.
stand.
Spoiler.
Yeah, that's fuck. If you haven't seen Fifth Element, let me save you the time. It fucking
it's a fun
sucks.
movie.
And it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. It's like The Fifth Element's been love the whole time. It's like, fuck you.
like,
Okay,
if
but
they had just
go ahead.
not let it, like, if they had just let it been like, he's using love to find this moment, not love is quantifiable, like not making it this metaphysical, like,
It didn't make
superpower
sense.
thing. It was
Because then we were like, Kate, how many loves do you love her?
So I'm just pretending that the love is quantifiable line doesn't exist, and then it works for me.
Good, yeah.
Because I love this fucking movie so much. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so
If
good.
he didn't say the quantifiable thing, if they just inferred that love was a guiding part, because here's the thing, once you get into space, time, and gravity being these primary elements in a 5-dimensional timeless loop, then to me, love being a bigger factor doesn't bother me. It's when he called it quantifiable. That
Right.
But
yeah.
if you think about it, if they would have followed her heart to the other one, to the other planet when they chose to go see Matt Damon, because he lied, they went because of science, because he had more evidence of a habitable planet, which turned out to be BS, then they would have survived.
And it fits thematically, but it still irks me.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
That's
Because I love hard sci-fi when authors and screenwriters are like, let's take these weird things that are in the universe and turn them into human stories. Yeah. And this is such a great example of that. And then there's that, like, we're going to just bend into soft sci-fi for a minute. And it's,
Yeah.
But
Well, and like, I feel like this is an interesting, like, along those lines, just jumping off of that is like the idea of this hard sci-fi. Like, I feel like hard sci-fi for me works best when, like, emotional things and like matters of the heart feel so disparate from everything else. You know what I mean? And that to me is what like introduces that human element that becomes the huge conflict for that. And when you're like, well, the things that make us human, it's all just fucking science anyways. It's like, nah, man, nah. So yeah, I'm with you on that for sure.
So how many times did everybody cry? I cried at least 3 times.
I teared up twice when when he's watching the kids' messages when they get back from Camino, which I'm calling the water planet, and he's like, "Oh, they're old now," and then at the end, but I'm a sap. I'm a sucker.
No, yeah, I'm with you. It's there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of stuff in this movie like that just pushes me emotionally, and that's the release that happens. Like even that, just the that moment with the spinning space station, like that whole sequence of like the airlocks and stuff is like so like emotionally draining that like by the end I'm just like, oh fuck, oh, and here we go again. It's just like into another thing. But yeah,
I was just thinking how like there are edge of my seat moments, but there's a constant tension that he keeps in everything. And when you talk about something like that and how that had me excited, I was like, this is just a much smoother, more clever way than doing what the Safdie brothers did in Uncut Gems. Just the idea that both those creators are really trying to keep your heart rate up a little bit. It keeps you invested, it keeps you curious, and it builds your emotion for these characters. And it's like, what a different way to do it, because for him, he has these long, sweeping, epic shots and this music that is really impactful, and then to have it come to a moment that, if you think about that actual situation, it's a little hokey that we're expecting him to match the rotation and then latch on. It's actually a very simple thing. How many space movies have someone trying to dock in a wild way? Like, that's a trope.
Or someone trying to parallel park on Earth. Also fucking hard.
Yeah.
Let's put some organ music over that.
I mean, I hear it when I'm trying.
Oh, that would make me even more
okay,
stressed
line up my
out.
car, line up the
You
back.
guys, no, you have
hate
not experienced that unless you've driven a car where the automatic steering has gone out.
Okay, but I used
And you're
to be
trying
able.
and you're trying to park with a minivan that no longer has
I
power
remember
steering.
having to go through
Power
a
steering,
scone cutter drive through multiple times in that minivan with you, and I felt I felt very
The organ
bad
music,
for you.
yeah. If we could go back in time, like this movie, I mean, yes. Let's take the music from this movie and put it in high school Justin's minivan, and my stress level, I mean, that would have matched my stress level perfectly. I wish Tyler McKinley was here tonight because he has stories about this too.
There's nothing that stresses me out. I'm also probably overly considerate. So when I'm parallel parking and I know I'm blocking someone from getting past me, I want to get out of their way so bad. But I'm like, I have to do this right. I avoid it at all costs.
Oh, I'll just leave. I'll be like, sorry.
I'll
this is
pay-
not
I'll
my
pay for
parking
parking.
spot.
Around the block, yeah. I'm gonna go around and pray.
I'm
that
gonna go
it's
around
still there
every
when I get
time.
back. Yeah.
I used to be able to parallel park a giant expedition, and I have lost that skill, and I can't even park my little Ford Fusion anymore.
Oh man.
I just avoid it at all costs. But yeah, you just made me very stressed about parking because the next time I'm gonna start having this music go off in my head.
Yeah.
See, do you ever think, because Hans Zimmer is the kind of guy, he watches a movie and he really finds these things. I'm sure it's very interactive with a filmmaker like Nolan. But do you think anyone ever tells him no? Like, nah, it's not really the vibe we were going for during that moment, Hans.
Well, apparently Nolan just gave him like one sheet. Like he wouldn't tell him the plot or anything. He just gave him like one sheet of cues and was like, all right, write something without drums and without strings.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How much have they worked together before?
A lot, I think.
I think on all the Batman, at least Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises and Inception.
Yeah.
So yeah,
okay.
it'd been
I mean, so at this
quite a
point,
few.
it like,
pretty close working.
I mean, who
relationship.
cares?
Hans
right?
Zimmer's only 62?
Yeah,
Why-
he's,
I thought he
he's
was like
not super old.
John Williams' age.
No,
No.
Dang,
John
he's
Williams
gotta be
is
young.
in his 90s now, I believe.
John Williams is
He's
gonna
kind of
die
mailing it in
sometime.
these days.
Jeez.
Okay, I'm not gonna say anything right now.
It's just he just flipped something out there, and we all like, yeah, it was great. Yeah, it looks like they've teamed up for pretty much every. He did Dunkirk. He did all three Batman.
Okay,
movies.
okay.
I thought the sound design overall in this movie is like really incredible, which it always is with his. It's always loud. I wonder if I would have almost been annoyed. I've heard this was way too loud in a theater.
It was loud in the theater. It was really loud.
Here-
But it was loud when we watched it today too, and I loved it.
My poor kids kept
Yeah.
covering their ears like every 3 or 4 minutes.
That's I remember seeing this movie and that being like the people I went with, that was the first thing they said when they came out of the theater. Like, I wish I just could have heard what they were saying. And I was like, what is that gonna do for you? Like, if they when they're like crashing a spaceship and you want to hear the conversation, like
Right,
to
yeah.
me it was like
'cause
I
we're
love
used to
those
it.
choices. I know. Well, and that's the thing is like I feel like that's one of those things where it's like that's why it's such a good choice. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And because you can tell what the priority in that scene is
Yeah.
now. It's not about an expository thing that someone's gonna say. You're not gonna hear someone say the name of their son and all of a sudden the emotional like puzzle pieces are gonna fall into place. Like it's just simulating that moment of like just the intensity of everything and that feeling. And I don't know, I loved it in a theater, but that's why I love going to a
Here's the
theater
thing,
too.
I
is
liked
just like
Dunkirk, and I liked Inception, which I think were also very loud, and so I don't think this would have bothered me all that much.
Yeah.
And whatever happened, I could hear the dialogue just fine. And there are moments where it matters, and moments where it totally would have made sense for it to not be there.
I think this being a space movie too, and based in reality, like the fact that the sound design allows for the juxtaposition of the emptiness of space that comes with just the bombastic, loud, in your face stuff that is happening all the time. Like I think of the shot where Matt Damon's character opens the hatch, and if I remember correctly, the explosion occurs and it cuts to silence at that moment, which is like the opposite of what you normally expect from an explosion. Obviously, in most movies, you're expecting loud noise and everything. And I think that there's some of that as it cuts back between different shots and stuff, different perspectives and things. But like there's this, like Gwen and I noticed like we both jumped in that moment. but it's not because of the sound. Like,
Interesting, yeah.
there's more to it there, and yeah. So I personally feel like the sound design in this movie is really ingenious. The music is on another level too, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is one of those movies that I was like, oh, it's like one of those. I feel like it's one of those early epiphanies I had where it was like, oh man, I feel like sound is actively being used in like a very like impacting way, and like like it's conveying so much. It's really great. Yeah.
And there's those awards for sound editing and sound mixing, which are apparently different, that I don't understand. I have to Google every year. I felt like I heard more depth of sound in ways that contributed to this than I have in a long time.
Sure.
And I do want to shout, we're doing this, our spotlighted person that we took from last week's show, which we watched. What movie did we watch last week?
Speed Racer.
Speed Racer is the Foley artist. Is it Foley? Foley artist. Her name is Allison D. Moore, and she has a really crazy good IMDb, but she did an interview with Inverse.com. And so if you want to look her up, it's really cool because they go through a lot of sounds, and she actually did the sounds for E.T., and it kind of talks about how she uses sounds from old experiments in new movies. So she did a movie called Red Planet, which I feel like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a run of like 20 movies on Mars, which I think happens every other decade. But Red Planet, I remember it's a little bit more dramatic and everything, and she kind of talks about what it meant to walk on Mars. And so they tried sand, wet sand, and pressing in different ways. And she ended up pressing her hand onto a layer of ice that had come onto like a really old small refrigerator that you'd like have in a dorm room. And just by pressing her hand on that, that's how they made the footsteps in Red Planet. And so just shout out to her, because clearly like there's probably all these little sounds in Interstellar that come from that side of type of thing.
I love that shit so much.
Yeah, it's so clever.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
Are all Foley artists just that person you wish were in a movie who like they're doing the voiceover and they're like, I hear music everywhere, and they're like walking through it and they're just hearing like the power lines buzzing and then like the water dropping 30 feet away from them, and they're like and they like rap over it. Like I feel like that's like the brain of a Foley artist is just like, I see beauty everywhere. It's
Got
just
some
like
August Rush going on or something.
exactly.
Yeah.
Either that or the kid who just likes, going out and whacking stuff with sticks and see, what noise does this make? What noise does this make?
I thought of like Daredevil, where he can hear all those random sounds. Where he's like, and then there's like, you know what that actually sounds like? If we were in space. Yeah, we need to meet some more Foley artists.
They close their eyes and listen, and they see a foot landing on Mars, and they're like, fucking nailed it. Yeah, got it.
Anyway,
All you bitches out there who can see colors when you hear music.
I think that was the powers of someone on Heroes.
Yeah.
Called synesthesia?
Synesthesia, I think.
We have a painting right there that's by someone with synesthesia.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so
Okay,
fascinating to me.
when you pointed up, I looked for a band. I was like, Gwen's fucking crazy. There's nothing there.
Yeah, it
There's
turns out
nothing-
if you don't
Can't
have
see it, Mitchell.
Oh, that's what synesthesia is.
What if a synesthesia painting was just an MP3? Like, here you go.
That's art now. Tyler.
I can't fucking see this.
Also, with the you talked about how he didn't really give Zimmer very much information. This was like a very vague marketing thing, which Tenet has been as well. And I'm sure if I looked online right now, I could. I mean, I know the spoilers are out there, but even regular reviews, you're going to get a better idea of it. I do remember, like, I appreciate that. I enjoy going in and him wanting to be super vague and not let the Reddit theories get to you before you just enjoy this. So I'm pro vague marketing strategy. I like, because I think he also does that to his trailers, which lately I hate to judge a movie by its trailer, but usually trailers are good and the movie lets you down. And when I see a bad trailer and I just know, I'm like, I'm not going to invest my time in you. But This is a really long movie. I'm wondering, is there any part of this movie that could have been cut, do you think, to make it a little bit tighter? Because I almost want to expand it and was like, this could have been a 4-hour miniseries. Like, a lot happens, but I wasn't mad at the end of the movie.
Sure.
I know you guys
Usually I
talked
get
about
mad.
like the ending already, so not to like rehash too much, but I must be the hopeless romantic or whatever, but like the whole comment about love being quantifiable and everything, and like the running length with the ending that I guess Nolan wanted to have instead of cutting it when Cooper is in the black hole and everything. Like It just feels right to me. I have a hard time thinking about what I would cut out of this movie at any point, especially because there's so much like overlap with all of the different, like the storyline on Earth that's happening, as well as stuff that's in space, and we get those back and forth with Murph and I guess she's Cooper too, but
Cooper and Cooper.
Yeah, exactly. The back and forth
Two
there.
Coopers.
So it's hard for me to think about like
see what
what I personally would be cutting out of that because of how well, how interplay, like how intertwined those two things are right there.
Everything comes together. I don't think there's many missing pieces. Like things do really all come back around. Like everything that happens matters. And I can't think of like a stop off or a moment that they had that really could have taken out of it. I think he does a good job. I guess I'm saying Christopher Nolan does a good job of at the beginning. There is a lot of exposition, but he hasn't really told us the specifics of why the world is in such a shithole. And then we actually get to the NASA base. And there I felt like it got a little bit muddled, but I'm like, I can't think of anything where they wasted time. And it's just a long story and it worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably where I would cut stuff. Not because it's bad. Again, like I don't think this movie is bad. Like I think there are choices you can make. Like I'm one of those people that I'm like, I don't need this. Listen, I get enough specifics about why the world is going to be fucking destroyed in 20 years just looking at the news. Like, I get it. Like, the world is just going to be fucked over at some point. Like, I feel like you can shave some time there.
Yeah.
And, like, for me, like, the idea of making that stuff a little more vague makes the grandeur of the story a little more, like, transcendental and, like, grand, and I feel more, I don't have a term for it other than this, so I'm gonna say it, but like spiritual. Like that's the thing I like about space movies, when space movies have this like spiritual component to them. And like I feel like you can push that movie. This movie has a lot of that. I feel like you can push it even further in that direction by like pulling out some of that exposition and letting the audience fill in those gaps, which I think they totally can do, especially with a movie that's about this, like the end of the world. Like, I don't know. There's an argument for world building there, but for me, like the sci-fi that I like that this is trying to emulate, there's less of that and more of, I don't know. Anyways,
like 2001.
Like 2001 or like Stalker or Tarkovsky. Anyways,
I'm so the opposite. I was like, man, tell me more about this corn blight. I want to know. Like, even though it would have totally detracted from the story, I was like, yeah, details.
Actually, if this was a book, I think I would have had a lot more room for that, and I would have maybe wanted more answers, but not necessarily to the ambiguity of the more spiritual and emotional section, but more to a little bit the end of the world and then where we're really moving forward. And at the end, maybe a little bit, okay, what exactly did she do with this information he gave her that helped her understand gravity, which apparently put them in a place where they could put this station out there and then find a planet and start to rebuild. I mean, I do have some practical questions, like how many people in the world are alive? Are there other countries trying shit? Like, what really happened? Why only corn? And like, there is a scene where they're just straight up like eating like 5 different types of corn. And I've been to a corn festival in northeastern Brazil. They have a corn festival, and I just happened to be there for the World Cup at the right time. And I went to a festival where they just had everything you could ever want made out of corn: sweet corn, corn chowder, corn stuffing, and it was pretty good. But I was like, man, you get sick of that. You get sick of that so fast.
Sick enough to want to just leave the earth behind.
One of the comments did point out that they had beer, so there was at least some sort of barley and hops left.
Yeah, they must be able to cultivate. Well, and they use corn. You can use corn fat. Corn can also be a fuel source. So I wonder how much they. Anyway, yeah. I get the spirit. I did like the idea of. I guess spirituality was the word of heart. This movie did make me feel, and it does make you think a little bit more existentially about. Not necessarily just what we're doing to our planet, or the fact that we used to invest so much in space travel. Like, I like the lie in the, well, to me, the lie in the textbook that the Apollo missions were all faked and we were just pushing Russia, because there's an idea that we stopped pushing the envelope with expanding out into space, because it is so expensive, and it's kind of become privatized with SpaceX and things like that, but it's just hard to spend money on that. But there's also many issues with our government as to why. But when we get into those bigger ideas, I really enjoy it. And I think it's because I think it is humbling to feel a little bit smaller. And I think in whole like Corona times, I think there are like so many pros and cons to Western idealism, but something I like about the East is there's a big focus on group over individual. And that comes into play with like an apocalyptic thing, but it also makes you think, when you can think of yourself as small, I think that is like a healthy thing for a human to go through. And when when you think of how big the universe is, whether you're spiritual or faithful or not, it helps you have some perspective. And I think him having those bigger ideas in this movie, it makes it that much more interesting. You walk away feeling that much more. And I think this movie is seen, I don't think it was it wasn't like knocked on, but I think no one thought it was like this step forward. And now that I watch it, I'm like, I think to follow Inception up with this, I was like, I think it was incredible. And then I love Dunkirk. And Dunkirk is also like, in a way, so much smaller. And I just think, okay, Christopher Nolan, I used to think he does great things, but I don't know if he's really it. And he's probably the best person making big movies right now. And he's one of the only people that has permission to make movies without IP. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you too. This movie, I just got to put a plug in for my daughter, because movie got done, I was feeling all kinds of emotions that I did not feel the first time I watched this movie. I think this movie benefits from rewatch.
Yeah.
But I just grabbed May and told her, hey, I love you. I'm glad that I get to be your dad, whatever. And she started crying and was like, I'm just so happy that you're my dad. And I was like, not expecting this kind of reaction out of a 5-year-old who just watched Interstellar for the first time. But that's really fascinating to me, and super cool that a movie that touches on things that you really don't appreciate, I think, maybe it's just me, until you kind of grow up a little bit and sort of realize your place in the world a bit, impacted my little girl so much, to where she was even feeling these big emotions that she couldn't really quantify or talk about or anything as a 5-year-old. So yeah,
Being a
it's
parent
really
must
cool.
have changed it for you.
It has.
Overall.
And the first time we watched this movie was just, it released a couple months after May was born.
Yeah.
And at the time, I thought, I'm a dad now. My perspective's changed and everything. But now, 5, almost 6 years later, I've realized how much more that has changed since then, even to where this movie today, we watched it today, and I was not emotional the first time I watched this movie. Today, I broke down, got pretty emotional towards the end of the movie, just of how the impact that it was having on me. The first time I watched it, I was just trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with the ending. This time, I didn't have to worry about that because I've had time to process it. But yeah,
I'm not in total what the hell happened mode, but I'm definitely in I want to read what people think, but I also don't want them to ruin it by having really dug into it. I'm like, whatever he's given us, I'm actually probably okay with that.
I
but
think that's a good way to experience this movie.
We did. I think I did find some pretty helpful user comments on this movie, just on IMDb. Let me pull up a couple of those reviews real quick.
The bastion of internet comment.
Exactly. People do have a lot to say, and it can be useful to see things from a different perspective sometimes. So here's probably the most useful, spoiler free. I'm just kind of look at Interstellar. 10 out of 10. Mankind achievement. This is a mankind achievement. The best movie ever made. Is anyone has doubt? What else can you say? What else is there to say about Interstellar?
I need that guy's blog site, please.
Yeah, I'm following him on Letterboxd now.
Is there anyone you admire that there's someone I admire who talks about movies, and I knew he was a little bit more highbrow. He watches a lot more old movies, Japanese movies, and appreciates the indie, but he likes Marvel movies and crap too, but he really doesn't like Nolan, and it really bothers me. And then I started looking at some random people's Letterboxd, and I was like, oh, I'm losing some hope in the world. And I don't go on there. Once a year I get on there and I like mark down 50 movies I've watched. I'm like, I'm going to review these. I'm going to rank these. And I never do. It's just, it's a tough investment of time. But I'm surprised everyone on IMDb doesn't be like, here's my Reddit. Here's my Letterboxd.
Right. Yeah.
Check me out.
Like on Goodreads. My full review is,
Yeah, exactly.
tell me here.
I don't want to come to your blog.
I'm not going to your blog.
Goodreads. So my cousin writes chick lit, and that's what they call it. That's what she calls it. So I hope it's not offensive. But they're short books that are like little rom-coms essentially. And she did one recently with a journalist in it, and who worked at a local news station. I worked at a local news station for a couple years. So like I advised her on the book. I pre-read it and made a bunch of corrections and stuff before it came out.
Nice.
And so this is the first time I haven't left a review for a book. And I just found out that all my reviews on Goodreads and Amazon got taken down because they somehow found out we were related. And I was like, a lot of small-time authors get people they know to rate their book. I'm like, that feels less dirty than a lot of other Amazon review things. But then I looked at Goodreads and I was like, I don't want to participate in this place. I'm not good enough to do this without hating everyone else on here.
Yeah, a lot of the time I scroll through the reviews and I'm like, humans are canceled. Y'all suck.
The nice thing is when I'm in like the chick lit section, mostly people are like super into it.
Yeah.
But like there's this very like, it's not, I wouldn't call it Hallmarky, but it's very light. And they're like, where was the sex scene? And I was like, did you read the book? Because it wouldn't have really fit.
They just need one shoehorned in the middle.
Sound like my kind of people.
Oh. I do have a couple random questions for you guys. Is long-term sleep real? Do we have any sort of cryo sleep yet?
Not yet.
I feel
Not that necessarily
that's one of
Not
those,
for
like,
us. Not for that's a 1%
okay.
thing. Yeah, that's
Disney's brain is frozen somewhere. I just because I know you can't keep the body like perfect because it's in special liquid or frozen, but I'm like, I wonder if we do have any sort of long-term healthy sleep that doesn't allow the body to deteriorate, because that still to me makes no sense.
This is based on reading Artemis Fowl 10 years ago, but I feel like cryogenics is used for short-term, like if someone has been traumatically damaged and needs surgery and you can't get them to surgery, I feel
And
like
kinda
that,
keep 'em-
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a thing or if that's just...
I didn't even Google it.
Artemis
Yet.
I feel like it's one of those things because like there are instances of people who like fall into a frozen lake or whatever, and they're like they survived for an hour because they were their
Captain
body
America.
temperature dropped or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's one of those like
real.
It's there, but it's like we don't really know how this works or we can't duplicate it or anything. Yeah.
I'm curious because it must be something they've to some degree tried. I didn't even Google it. Yeah, I just wanted to know.
It's interesting because it's so many like that's like one of those just like expected things in sci-fi. I think like cryogenic sleep is just or some form of like deep sleep of some kind is just
Right.
like the 3-body problem, which we've talked about on this podcast before. That's like a big thing in that series is that people can sleep or exist for hundreds of years.
sci-fi creators just assume that problem's being
Right,
worked
yeah.
on. They're like, because we need it for our plots.
My kids, after watching Star Wars, have started asking, is X real yet? Because Tears like, is the snow speeder real? Can I have a snow speeder instead of a car? I'm like, not yet. And so that has become their refrain.
Yeah, I mean,
Are
you need
lightsabers real yet?
you need to start approaching that like, no, but they were a long, long time ago.
but not in our galaxy. I remember when Phantom Menace came out, McDonald's, they famously do Monopoly every year or whatever, and you can get the pieces and get free stuff. And they did a Star Wars themed Monopoly, and if you got everything, you could pick from like these huge prizes. And I swear one of them was like a little hovercraft. And then like 10 years later, someone's like, Mitchell, we really don't have any hovercrafts yet. And I'm like, I swear it's like a little weird speeder that was just, it wasn't real. I collected all those pieces for. I begged my mom to take me to McDonald's for nothing.
I feel like they did have one though that blew my mind that was like Cloud City, but it was like on like a little stand and it had magnets, so it was like kind of like floating sort of. And I was like, this is so fucking cool. And I tried to put other stuff like in the stand. I'm like, it's not fucking working. Why is it? What am I doing
It's like one of
wrong?
those perfectly balanced eagles that you could get on
Yeah,
your
it probably
like,
actually was that. Yeah.
how does this work?
One time, my uncle bought me this thing, and it's like a top, and you put it on a magnet, and you have to do it just right, but it spins. Then the top will spin on top of the magnet floating. for like 30 seconds to a minute, like a long time. And I was like, why haven't we harnessed this yet?
If I put enough of these on my shoes,
Where's my speeder? Okay, if I'm gonna go to Disney World and go to Galaxy's Edge, I want to actually ride on a speeder. Is that so wrong?
no.
It's expensive. All right. My other question was, before this, had you guys ever heard of Murphy's Law?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like heard it. Could not have told you about it.
I feel like if you've ever been in a blue collar profession, like working with mechanic, like those are the people who always say it. They're like 50-year-old men are like, oh, if it can go. I mean, it's never phrased the actual way Murphy's Law is. It's just like the bumper sticker way of like, if something can go wrong, it will. It's like, that's kind of true when you're working on like.
That reminds me of the first time I heard horse shit. It was someone with that exact same voice. I was like,
that guy also believes in Murphy's Law.
Horses poop. If you're on a farm, that makes sense. But I was just, he specifically had to call it bullshit, but horse shit. He was like, it's not a bull's feces. This is a horse feces. But that's the same guy. So good to know.
For sure.
They have different connotations, right? If I say horse shit as opposed,
Horse shit versus bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a different meaning.
Is it because a horse is like a more beautiful animal, so to think of their shit, it's worse somehow? Because I feel like when I hear horse shit, it's worse than bullshit.
I agree.
Are y'all
yeah.
actually conjuring shit in your mind when you hear that?
Like bullshit is like
I don't know. I'm just wondering if I'm subconsciously doing it.
I'm looking at the shapes and the amount of liquidity, the color.
How long will
Straw
it take me to clean
content.
up? Straw content's important.
I learned the other day why poop comes out green sometime, and it's not because of green foods, and I can't remember why, and now it's bothering me.
Fruit Loops, that's why.
Oh, you're right. It's because of artificial dyes. Good job. I got that poop that I left on the side of the road that I told you guys about before the podcast. Very normal colored, and now it's like it's a crusted thing. I actually took a picture of it a couple weeks ago when it was like a month and a half old.
Instagram.
I should have. Where was I today?
Oh my God.
By my own poop.
This is my week old.
This is gonna make no sense.
Just a Google Maps with all of Mitchell's roadside shits geotagged, so you can make a tour out of it.
Yeah. Oh, are you driving the
big
Pacific Coast
poop
Highway?
emoji.
No, we're following the Mitch Shit Highway.
I bet you people would do it.
Yeah, they'll follow anything if I'm famous. Yeah. If Taylor Swift had a poop trail, guaranteed she would have a lot of people following it. They're like, this is a red era poop. So here's if you smoke it, these are the emotions you get. This is a reputation era poop. Stay away from it.
Smoking shit.
That's a good shit.
Oh. Anyway, did you guys have any other thoughts on Interstellar?
Oh no. I do want to talk about Taylor Swift more for some reason.
Let's do it. I was just say overall, like, I'm really happy. I'm really happy about it.
I'm glad I didn't realize you hadn't seen it.
It is one of the weird blind spots I have, in my opinion.
Just real quick, we don't have to talk about this too in depth. What did you think of the actor who stays behind and he's like lives by himself? Seneca, yeah.
Wes Bentley?
Yeah. What did you think of that transformation? How did you think he did for that? Do you think?
Wait. Are you talking about the black guy who stays on the ship?
Yes. That's who I'm talking about. What is that guy?
Yeah, he didn't seem to get aged up 23 years, but he said he's like, I tried sleeping a couple times, so I don't know how much. I thought he did a pretty good job. I was very sad he died.
Yeah. That's like, we always, I mean, you put yourself like, what would I do if I was in this situation? What would I do if I was in that situation? You always think of yourself as the hero or whatever, but like that character, I think, has given me more existential dread than any other character in the movie, because like, I think I would probably blow my brains out if
I do too.
If I had a way of doing that after probably just a couple years, maybe not even that long. I don't know.
I might put myself into a sleep that's just like, when they find me, they find me. If they never find me, if this runs out, whatever, I'm gonna die. Like
Matt Damon did.
Yeah.
And this is why I will never be an astronaut.
Yeah.
I'm
I thought
too
you wanted
mentally
to go to
weak.
Mars. I thought we were moving to Mars.
I'm not smart
But
enough.
yeah, that'll be like the easy way, because we'll be riding SpaceX spaceships with Pizza Huts and stuff on them or something.
okay.
So
Have you guys
Not
seen The
SpaceX.
Martian?
yes.
Did you guys got my potato reference in my summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I didn't, What a nice little part for Matt Damon. He probably shot for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He gets to
He
kind of
wasn't
be an asshole.
advertised at all either. So
No,
you turn over
you
the
had no
theater,
idea.
and all of a sudden there was Matt Damon. It was
I
great.
think when they were going to unveil him, I'm like, oh, I bet this is a famous person. And I wanted to look up the younger actors to make sure it was Timothée Chalamet. And I saw the IMDb, so I saw him, but I didn't think about it. And it's like an hour and a half in. So that's a fun way to do it, to be in a big movie. I will say, I think they cast really well. I think Timothée Chalamet into Casey Affleck, and then, I looked up the girl because she's also in this really bad Christmas movie called Nutcracker in the Four Realms. But I thought Jessica Chastain, like, they are both have a very similar, like, paleness and nose. I was like, wow, that was really good casting for young to old. Anyway.
Which is funny because Jessica Chastain is in the It movies, or the second It movie, and is also the adult version of a child actress that kind of looks like her. Sure.
I really want to watch
fine.
the It movies, like, with the lights on and while I'm looking at my phone, but just experience because everyone says they're good.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm very conflicted. I've got very conflicting opinions about it.
I did read about the end of the second one because there was just so much commotion about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds really bad.
Yeah,
that sounds
pretty bad.
like how superhero movies often fall apart in the third act with a really bad battle and a stupid monster.
It felt very
Looking
similar.
at you, Batman v Superman, Martha. And anyway, okay, that was Interstellar. It was stellar. You knew it was coming. You knew I had to make that pun. Tyler, tell us about what we're going to be watching next week.
Oh, we're going to be following the work
But
of our
you
good
texted me the name
friend.
of it,
Yep.
and I forgot, and I just threw you right in there.
Elise Smith edited this movie, and he also edited a movie in 1998, and that movie is The Truman Show.
Gosh, you guys are going to learn so much about me next week.
Oh no. And we're going to watch The Truman Show and somehow learn more about Mitchell than we learned this week.
Less about
all
my
right.
bowels.
So yeah, we're going to be watching that. And if you want to reach out to us, you can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram or Twitter at rewatcherspod. Thank you.
We'll be right back with some recommendations. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on Pod. This is our recommendation section where we talk about whatever the hell we want and current stuff. Tyler Harris, what are you doing? What are you watching? What are you recommending?
So I have a few things. This week I started watching Mr. Robot again, which I watched the first season like 4 years ago, I guess. And I really enjoyed it, and I never watched any more of it. And
Did you finish the first season back then?
Here's the thing. I thought I did.
Yeah.
I did not watch the final episode of season 1. Again, I mean, we've just talked about how I wish the ending of Interstellar had ended earlier. I could have, if the first season of Mr. Robot had been 9 episodes, I would have thought it was fucking great. You add that 10th episode, and I'm like,
So how far are you into it?
So I'm about halfway through the second season now.
That's where I quit.
Okay.
I couldn't do it.
I am pushing through because I've heard such great things about the third and fourth season, which the fourth season aired last fall. But man, not a fan so far of what they're doing. And honestly, watching season 1 again, I was less of a fan. Mm-hmm. But I do think that show does some really interesting stuff.
It does, yeah.
And has some really interesting performances. If you want to see Rami Malek basically doing a lot of the stuff he does in Until Dawn, but in real life,
Whoa.
you should check this shit out. Man, Rami Malek is... I don't know if I...
You don't know if he's... Is
Rami
Malek actually good?
Be a terrible actor. I don't know. But there's definitely some interesting stuff, and I probably have. It's weird to recommend this, but I probably have more negative things to say about Mr. Robot at this point than positive. But I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect kind of background while I am finishing up Paper Mario on my Nintendo Switch. So it's been interesting. I'll revisit when I've watched more. But
There's good ideas to engage with, and he
Yeah.
clearly has some very interesting talent as a writer and a filmmaker. But the ideas get so big and trying to be convoluted that it gets tough to hang. But I have heard good things about later seasons, so I haven't ruled it out. But I really struggled. Even Craig Robinson is in the second season. I still couldn't do it.
yeah. It gets real weird. But yeah, so kind of a recommendation. I don't know if you're looking for something you don't know. It feels like a very. I haven't watched anything new in a while, as far as like new to me, and so it's been good on that front. I have also been playing a video game. I've been playing Paper Mario, which I still am. It's a wonderful game. But I've also been playing a game called Spiritfarer, which is how to describe Spiritfarer? It is a kind of management and crafting sim where you are a girl named Stella who is taking over... I don't know how to pronounce this because I've never said it out loud, but Charon from Greek mythology, the ferryman in Greek mythology that carries spirits from this life to the next, is kind of like retiring, and you play this girl named Stella who is taking over that job. And this game is fucking just adorable as shit. The art direction is amazing, and it's a game that is entirely about death. And you basically have this boat that you're building new rooms on, and you're getting more and more of these spirits that are like kind of staying on this boat until they get ferried to the next life. And it's a very like death positive game, which I'm also really into lately for some reason. I've been feeling so much dread and just like the idea of coming to terms with what death is. And this game's really great because a lot of it is doing errands for these spirits, not to resolve any unfinished business, but basically just to comfort them and have a great time before you take them to pass over. And it's really adorable. It's really well made. And I'm really having a good time with it. I'm playing that on the Switch. I think it's on everything though. So, anyways, I think that's mostly it though.
If you think of something else, if you're just like, I want to talk about this, you bring it in. Okay. Justin, what do you want to talk about?
This is always hard for me. Like, I am busy consuming media frequently, but the media that I consume is like, it's very like I watch and consume the same thing every week. It's like I open up YouTube and just queue up like all of my subscriptions for the day and just have that running like all day basically. So I think I've basically gone through and like recommended almost everything that I regularly watch most of the time. Like we got some StarCraft stuff on there. I guess like one thing there, if you're not in the YouTube scene, then I guess you may not know who these people are, but I have been watching Rhett and Link, their Good Mythical Morning series for years now at this point. They do a weekly podcast called Ear Biscuits. I'm recommending another podcast on our podcast, which is cool. But anyways, it's just these two guys hanging out, talking about stuff in their life. I really like their personalities. They did a couple podcasts. They just did a series beginning of the year, I think, where they talked about, so they grew up in I wouldn't call it fundamentalist, but more
hardcore evangelical.
Yeah, in an evangelical, like Southern homes, and we're pretty hardcore, like Gwen said, with their religious beliefs. And they did this podcast series where they just kind of like talked about their deconstruction, I guess, of their faith is what they called it. And for somebody who kind of went through that with a different faith, it was very cathartic to hear other people talk about their faith transition and where they are in their lives right now. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And then obviously, their weekly podcast is great as well. But just as like something that's such a big pivotal part of my life. If you want to hear somebody else who's gone through it with a little bit different perspective, check out Rhett and Link's like faith deconstruction stuff. And then once again this week, I just want to mention Bloodborne real quick. I've been playing it a little bit more, and I have fallen in love with the setting of this game again. I have not played it for years, but getting back into it and getting into the Lovecraftian feelings that this game evokes is just like, it's really, really good. It's kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of weird, like horror shit that I'm super into. Like I'm thinking about like, oh, if I were to get a tattoo, would I want to get like one of these bloodborne like symbols from this game? Yeah, it's really good. So if you like Lovecraft stuff, if you like video games, this is the perfect marriage. Please check it out. Again, I'm going to recommend this game like multiple times over the future, but yeah, definitely check it out.
It's good.
Based on the amount of swears coming from the living room, do you really recommend it?
No, I definitely recommend it. It is a Souls game, so if you don't like a hard video game, then don't play it. But yeah.
Sorry, am I up?
You're up.
Okay.
You can question your husband on this podcast anytime you want. I'm just kidding.
So, well, we talked about this briefly before the podcast, but I watched Phantom Menace with my kids yesterday, and it's got terrible dialogue. The pod racing, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Scene is so long.
It reminds me of Speed Racer.
Yeah. Well, that's what May said. She's like, it's Speed Racer. I like that movie, guys. It's an enjoyable watch, and I'm glad Tyler's not here because I'm sure he'd kill me, but I like it, okay?
Straight up.
It's
Pull out his lightsaber from episode
his
5.
kitchen knife.
yeah.
That's actually why he's not here. We're all a little scared of Tyler for sure. That's not true. Tyler's a lovely gamer.
I tell you guys, last week I went to their house at like 3 a.m. and tried to get in, and he was really freaking out about it. I was like, "What is going on?"
Because you needed to take a shit or
I
something.
really had to go.
You were on a walk.
I've probably said this about Phantom Menace before, but growing up with the original trilogy and then having something new and having more lightsabers, I wasn't even a Jar Jar fan, but like Naboo, that world, like I wasn't even a huge pod racing fan. But there's so much to and like the final battle is one of the best lightsaber battles of all time. But between that and it means so much to me, and it took me a long time to realize that it's bad in a lot of ways. But that I don't ever rewatch it and have any negative feelings about it. I can recognize its objective bad movie quality, so that makes me really happy to hear you say that. Because it was the first one we got to see in as a brand new movie in theaters. Yeah. It was mine. Like,
it was an experience.
It was important to me. And I had Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and it cost $6 at Walgreens, and I had to clean the garage for it, so it's important.
Yeah, I like that movie, and I'm going to watch the next ones sometime this week with my kids. And then I finished A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green, which is the second and final in a series called The Carls. And it is very timely, and it was written before the pandemic, but feels like it was written for the pandemic in really weird and creepy ways. And it talks just about, I think you'd classify it as like near future sci-fi. These robot aliens come to Earth, and it's how they disrupt our society, and specifically the way that social media would handle something like that. And the second book in particular talks a lot about the way that we live in social media, and these companies become countries basically with unelected leaders where we have to live in a lot of ways, and those implications. And it's a good story, but I really liked the exploration of timely ideas that it presented. So yeah, that's what I did this week.
Cool. I'm gonna that storytelling. Obviously, that's what Black Mirror does. Is talk about more media, and technology. But when they go at social media, it's usually good. But anytime they marry an idea of our media now and how it could evolve to something like that, sometimes they suck at actually telling the story around it. But it's almost always a good idea.
Yeah.
And it makes reading about it makes you think. Cool. I kept thinking, before I was like, I didn't watch anything this week, and now I've watched a lot. Justin, you made me think of a show I watched called Welcome to Plathville, which is about this family that raises their kids on a Georgia farm in a bubble. And like they self say that they're like, we shelter them as much as possible. And their oldest daughter is still pretty conservative and just moved to Ohio, but their second son is 21 and got married, I think when he was 20, to someone who grew up in a fairly loose home, but they could like watch TV, whereas this family, the Plaths, could not watch TV at all. And she's probably to our standards still fairly conservative, but she seems insanely liberal to this family. And so to see that oldest son, he's like a kid in a candy store, and he's still responsible. He doesn't look like he's going to go crazy, but now he's like trying to get his younger siblings to see the world more, and seeing them, the parents are, to their credit, like they have like a really rebellious teenage daughter. They're kind of letting her, they're like, if we just tell her no all the time, it's only going to make it worse. But they're like cutting a fine line, and it's interesting because they're even more strict and conservative than most of the religious people I grew up around. But it's really cool to see that conflict within them. And when you said that, it just made me think that, because it's a TLC show that I saw on Hulu. And you kind of see these super conservatives like the Duggars from 17 Kids and Counting on TV. And I can criticize them in so many ways, but there's always going to be ways that like I relate to them, and I don't need to hear about the world shitting on them, which is easy to do right now. And just seeing them deal with that. And you see it from the son's perspective too, which I think is really important. But to see people just go their different ways and not do it in such a way that's like, faith ruined my life, which I totally understand it definitely does for some people. But to really see that straddled and dealt with. And it's really, because he's 20, the son is 21. And to see him trying to communicate with his parents, you got to remember, like, you're not a great communicator as an adult. Probably even now, but like I'd like to think between like 21 to 26 you make some serious progress. So his wife, who is like now the black sheep, who's like trying to help these kids see more worldly things, is like, she's kind of villainized by the parents, but I'm like, she just doesn't know how to communicate this. It's actually coming from love. Anyway, watch TLC shows once in a while. That's my recommendation, because Hoarders, My 6 Ton Life, okay, they can be really entertaining. They're a good way to work your brain. My other recommendation is, I guess I'm plugging Apple Plus, because my sister's had it because she wanted to watch The Morning Show, which is like Steve Carell and Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon show. And she's like, I'll keep it for a few months. And so I wanted to get on because I don't know if you guys remember, there was a viral commercial a couple years ago with Jason Sudeikis as an American football coach coaching soccer in England.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny,
Yeah.
but you're like, no way this is a show. And they turned it into a TV show, and everyone was like, this is shockingly good. And they're right. It's called Ted Lasso, and I can't recommend it enough. I like have so much fun watching it, and it's got heart, and like it's based in soccer, but you don't have to give two shits about soccer. That's kind of what it is, because he's so foreign to everything about England. It is really interesting. And Jason Sudeikis is someone who's like in a bunch of comedies I like, but I don't know if I've ever specifically thought I was into Jason Sudeikis, but it's really good. So watch Ted Lasso. I binged Legend of Korra, which is actually on Netflix, so that ruins my Apple thing. But if you like Avatar, I think you'll love Korra. The second season's really far below the other two, but it gets just a little bit more mature in the perfect way. And I think if you watch it with your kids in that order, it's just fun. And some of the stuff they do gets a little wild, but mostly it's pretty tight. Man, they're just such good storytellers. And apparently, I didn't know about the show. It actually got kicked off of Nick after their second season and aired online only for seasons 3 and 4. So they're not very well seen until now. And then there's a comic series that's still going afterwards. And it was really cool to see that. And I think they advanced story in a really interesting way that's accessible to adults and kids. And then I watched a movie called Boys State, which I think we're going to be hearing about around award season. It's about, apparently this happens in every state, and I had never heard of it, but I think I would have gone to this if I was in high school. But essentially, you go and practice a mini fake legislature and elections in a camp.
You do that?
Did I do that?
Yeah.
I don't remember if I did.
But like, it's a 1 week thing.
Oh, that was the lost summer.
Well, I
one he
feel
forgot.
like I remember a story about someone sleep talking, whose name I won't say on the podcast.
Oh no, that was just a music.
Oh, okay.
But
Sorry.
it's a
state
no, you're
music
fine.
thing.
It's a week-long camp, and they follow 4 boys. It's called Boys State, but there's also a girls' state, and it's in Texas. And 2 of the 4 boys one of them is super liberal. The other one is fairly liberal, and they're like, I've got to play this game because I'm surrounded by all these white conservatives. And it gives you a little bit more hope in the world, because you see how some of these people reject what the adults are doing. And then there's a kid who's like, oh, I straight up lied about that because that's good politics. But it's so well crafted. I have never... There's a few confessionals, but mostly weird. The sound that they got, the fact that these kids said these things out loud, it's amazing. So honestly, if you want to pay, it's worth $5 itself. So subscribe to Apple for a month and get it. Like, this is going to be talked about, and it's really good because you're just seeing this microcosm of the ideas that these kids are getting from their parents, and then how they interact it when they're essentially at a camp. Like, if you went to any sort of thing where you were staying on a campus or whatever for a week when you were a kid, I think you'll really enjoy seeing how this goes down. So that's called Boys State, and I'm serious, it's going to be nominated for an Oscar, so you should probably watch it. And the last one is just called Little Voice, and it's like this girl who wants to be a star and is really stage shy and sings really good, and it's just like she's just running around New York. She's a dog walker. She does piano lessons. She's a bartender. Like, she's just trying to survive as an artist, and I'm only a few episodes in, so like there's a love story and shit, but her rehearsal space is a storage unit, and it's got some of these cliches. I'm like, it's fun. It just makes you think wistfully, like if you were going to pursue your art in that way. And then I just wanted to ask you guys, did you see anything with that news coming out of this DC, like they did a little Comic-Con that gets you excited for anything comic booky coming up?
There's a new video game, I think, that is coming out. I didn't see if it has a release date or anything. I'm excited about it because it's been well received. I haven't actually watched the trailer for it yet. I don't know, Tyler, if you've seen it yet or not.
Is it Gotham Knights?
Yeah, the Gotham Knights.
Oh, okay,
one.
I've heard of this.
But I heard it looked really good.
Yeah,
so.
It looks cool. I mean, it looks like Batman, and it's going to be co-op, which sure, a co-op Batman game sounds rad, and it's bringing in the Court of Owls storyline that Scott Snyder did in the Batman comics. I think like 3. It's like the only run of Batman comics I've read, and the Court of Owls are really fucking cool. And so yeah, it looks interesting. It looks like Arkham Knight, and, which are all great. I love all those games. So that looks really
those have
cool.
been probably the best superhero received video games in a long.
Yeah.
This new Spider-Man, I know
Spider-Man,
Spider-Man. Yeah, probably right. I'll be honest, I'm excited for the Batman. I did not think I would be, but I'm very excited for it. I love Matt Reeves. I think he's a great director. I mean, those Planet of the Apes movies are... I don't think enough people have seen them.
Yeah.
I think they're fucking fantastic, the new Planet of the Apes, especially the last 2. First one is fine.
Shots at James Franco. Okay.
Yeah, sure. And John Lithgow. Fuck you.
Who I called Third Rock from the Sun guy
Yeah, no.
in Interstellar.
John Lithgow's fine. But I will also say the stuff I saw from the new Suicide Squad movie, I'm kind of in. It looks ridiculous.
I gotta get pulled back into that.
Yeah, I'm still bitter about spending money on the
that
first
movie.
one.
Here's
we
the thing.
We didn't spend
8
money on
months
it.
pregnant.
We didn't spend money
and
on it,
just fuck that movie.
I mean, here's the thing. John Cena is in the new Suicide Squad movie, and also they're bringing back the hero Polka Dot Man. So it looks so different. It looks fun for once, which
That's
I
good.
don't think I mean, I will say, I think Shazam was a really fun DC movie.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about
and
that. Which
that's
feels
one
so
that-
different from the first.
Exactly, yeah.
And they did announce the sequel to Shazam, too.
Oh, did they? I missed that. I'll go see that. I like Zachary
Yeah, for
Levi,
sure.
and that first movie was fun. But yeah, those were the 2 things that like I saw stuff from that I was like, I didn't think I'd be excited about either of these things, and I'm actually kind of stoked to see what happens. So
The Suicide Squad one is interesting because they're keeping... There's like 3 characters, I think, from the first one. So,
Yeah.
like, it must technically be a
which
sequel.
one of them is Joel Kinnaman? So they've already made like
yeah.
one mistake, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, yeah. At least, look, Jack Courtney and Will Smith aren't coming back.
Yeah,
But you're right in that there's a bunch of random characters. There's like... He introduced like 19 different characters. So I'm very...
Yeah.
We thought it was impressive when James Gunn, who did the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, when he he really did a great job at developing 5 characters at once. Man, 19, which will probably be more like 4, and we already really know what we have in Harley Quinn and everything. But it looks fun. It looks interesting. I'm worried it's going to do bad purely because it's what it is.
Sure.
They're just straight up being like, we're just going to take a second shot at this. But I think whatever you say about Guardians 2, like James Gunn, clearly good at music, clearly good at having fun in these worlds. So I will definitely give it a chance. I definitely was more pro. There was also like a 2-minute behind the scenes type of vignette trailer release for it. So I'm definitely pro. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and like Steve Agee is in it too. Who like I don't know if people know who Steve Agee is, but you'd probably recognize him. He's a comedian. He's King Shark, which is just a fucking shark. He's just a goddamn shark that fights people. And Nathan Fillion is in it, which like
he's like best friends with him. So just
All right, I'm in.
Nathan Fillion, man, just
I never did make it through Firefly.
Excuse me.
Or is that the name of the movie? No, Serenity's the movie.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to look at your eyes right now. They also announced The Flash is going to be covering. The Flash is going to be covering Flashpoint, which makes sense, and they're going to have multiple Batmans in it, which I think it's fun to go a little bit weird, and I hope they do. Sure. But they are still saying that kid is going to star in them. And Ezra Miller, I'm like, I don't think I can go to a theater and care to see a movie that stars him.
No,
that bothers me so. But Michael Keaton is going to show up as Batman again, and we've been all about Michael Keaton. So,
fuck it.
A little sad about that. Wonder Woman got another trailer, and then they haven't said anything about Aquaman, but. Cool, like I'm
Snyder
gonna
Cut
consume a lot
finally
of this.
coming to HBO Max. Can't fucking wait to consume Justice League in 4 1-hour chunks that I'm sure are gonna just fix that movie completely and be the fucking best movie I've ever seen.
But are
in my
you gonna
life.
watch? Are you gonna?
No, I'm not gonna watch it.
I'm gonna watch it.
I didn't watch it when it came.
As someone who watched the first one pretty passively, I'm like very curious to see. I might have to rewatch the first one to see how. Oh man!
I mean,
that's too much time.
I was almost convinced when Zack Snyder was on Twitter and being like, "This is a movie made for adults, not kids like Marvel movies are." It's like, great, cool. That's what I wanted.
That's what I was most concerned about is the audience that this is for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of ruined. I wasn't like hopeful, but I was like, this could be interesting.
I say this as someone who spent a long time defending the director's cut of Watchmen as a movie, and like, man,
I like watching cut. I want to see cuts that are just because the Blade Runner cuts are different, but I want to see one that is like complete. Like, oh, I wanted a different freaking color filter. I want different sound. I want 2 movies that are clearly shot with the vast majority of the same footage to look completely insanely different. So as different as it will make me more happier, and I'll try it out. But if it's 4 hours, I can't guarantee I'll make it to hour 3 if it's not quality.
That's fair.
All right. That was a lot. But Interstellar was super fun. Join us next week for the Truman Show. My name's Mitchell Marshall. I've been here with
Gwen Hammer.
Justin Hammer.
And Tyler Harris.
This is the Rewatchers on the pod. We'll see you next week. Bye.